Early childhood education and broadband, two very different topics, but two initiatives being led by Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke. We'll catch up with the LG as well as leaders in both subject matters, including State Superintendent Keith Hayashi. Spotlight Now starts now.
You're watching Spotlight Now with Ryan Kalei-Suji and Yunji Denise on Hawaii News Now. Have questions or comments for our guests? Join the conversation in our Facebook live stream. Spotlight Now, where Hawaii comes to talk.
Hello and thanks for tuning in here on this Tuesday to Spotlight Now here on Hawaii News Now. Yunji Denise has the day off, but we want to thank all of you for watching both on air and online. For those of you who are watching, we want to encourage you to be part of the conversation. You can, of course, engage by typing in your question and comments in the comment section on our Facebook page at Hawaii News Now, or by scanning this QR code that you see at the bottom of your screen. I'm going to be tracking the comments and questions throughout the show for our guests and bring them in throughout the show. Speaking of our guests, we want to welcome in our first guest here on Spotlight Now, Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke, who's actually the acting governor right now because our governor is out of town. Thanks for joining us. Aloha.
No, it's always a great pleasure to be here.
So first up, you are in this role of acting governor right now. And I just want to ask, it's been a busy month for you. There's been a number of wildfires that have happened both on Maui and Kauai. How have things been going this past month?
I think it's becoming a new normal, especially during the summer months. As soon as the governor left, we had few wildfires on the island of Maui, and we had several on the island of Kauai. I can tell you this, I was on Maui and also on Kauai, both the EOC on Maui and Kauai. They did such a fabulous job. They connected with HAIMA and our state emergency systems right away. I was in contact with both mayors immediately as soon as they saw the elevated nature on both islands. And I can't thank Derek Kawakami and Richard Bisson, both mayors of Kauai and Maui, enough for all their proactive approaches this time.
Of course, the last time you were in this role was actually a year ago when we saw the devastation that happened on Maui and in Lahaina. And since then, the governor has been on this program and publicly has been stating and calling for a need for some sort of special fund relating to disaster preparedness because of natural disasters. He has tried to pass this through the form of a green fee. He's also proposed that check-in fee, just trying to find a dedicated fund for mitigation of these types of efforts. As we continue to see these types of incidents occur more and more often in these natural disasters, and someone who's familiar with the legislative process, what do you think is the best mechanism to be able to fund this growing need for response?
One of the things that I realized just in the last several weeks where we had to deal with probably about a dozen wildfires popping up either on Maui or Kauai. Anytime there's a wildfire, it triggers what's known as a major disaster fund. But in order to trigger the major disaster fund and initiate the National Guard services or helicopter services, we need to do emergency proclamation. And that process takes a long time because the Attorney General needs to engage with our office. We have to go through the wording and we have to locate where it is. There should be a mechanism where the National Guard through General Hara and HAIMA, they should be able to trigger the helicopter or the Air National Guard immediately without the need for emergency proclamation and without triggering the MDF. Because, in certain situations, these wildfires, it cannot wait. And you have to be able to extinguish and control the flames and the situation right away. So I do think that there has to be some mechanism where they can bypass the emergency proclamation and then send help right away.
And so would this be legislatively done? How would that sort of change happen or occur?
Right. So it would have to be a new legislation where without triggering the emergency proclamation to get a hold of or get resources either financially or manpower that the TAG, the Adjutant General and HAIMA can get the use of funds. But of course, within certain control. But there has to be a way where they can respond immediately to some of these disasters around our island state.
Well, this time of year also marks the beginning of school as parents get their children and kids ready to head back to school and into the classroom. You, of course, are leading the Ready Cake initiative. A lot of big announcements coming out about that program, the expansion. What can you tell us at this point about where this program stands and some of the efforts that have happened over the course of the last few months to get you ready for the start of another year?
Since taking office as lieutenant governor, we were successful enough to open 11 classrooms last August, and we also opened 2 additional classrooms this past January. We're happy to announce that in August, 44 new classrooms will be open, and these are 44 classrooms for 3 and 4 year olds. I mean, the reality, Ryan, is that in the state of Hawaii, half the kids don't have an opportunity to go to preschool because preschools are just expensive, or there's not any preschools close to where they live or work. And having all these preschools open within their neighborhood, we're going to be opening the first one on the windward side, and couple of them will be Hawaiian language immersion programs. So that's really exciting, and it's providing so many more opportunities for our working families.
There's also been a change in the application process. If you can expand a little bit more about that with the preschool tuition subsidy program, because that is now available year round, whereas before there was a sort of window of time. What prompted those changes, and if you can expand a little more about that?
The great thing about the Ready Keiki initiative is it's not just a public school pathway. It also provides private school subsidies for asset limited individuals. So in the past, the subsidies were only available to parents and guardians of 4 year olds. But now we were able to expand that to include 3 year olds. Just as of now, I think about half the people who are applying for preschool open door subsidies are parents and guardians of 3 year olds. So all of a sudden, it's providing new opportunities and new ability for parents to be able to send their kids to preschool as well. That it also increasing the amount from $600 to $900 to about $1,500 a month subsidy, and this is huge because preschool costs now anywhere between 11 to 1,500. So it's a huge help. If parents or guardians or grandparents, if you know of 3 or 4 year olds and you're still looking to enroll them, go on our website readykeiki.org, and you will have options for either the public sector preschool or the private sector option.
Well, it's becoming apparent that this is a program that is being well received by the community, with so many people really wanting to engage, wanting to learn more information, and at times we noted a waiting list trying to get these kids into this program. Can the state keep up with this rate and this demand? And how do you really meet the demand of all of these children that want to enroll in this program?
We are just so thankful that we have such good engagement and we have such good partnership with the Department of Education, with our Executive Office of Early Learning, with our private sector partners. The fact that a lot of people in the community, I mean, I run into people, grandmas and others around town, and then they go, "Oh, it's terrific! You're opening more preschool." I have a Mo'opuna 3-year-old on the windward side, and they're so excited that Ben Parker will be open this fall, and then even Alva Scott. So there's so much excitement. But part of our job is we have to do a lot of outreach to make sure that parents know and grandparents know and guardians know that these options are available for their 3 and 4 year olds. So we're just so thankful to all the partners.
You're about a year now. You've been able to get feedback from the classrooms that have already been open, speaking to the parents that have used and been a part of this program. What do you think the state has learned about some of the successes and some of the things that you need to work on to improve what's happening here?
One of the great things about this program is whether you are in Lanai or whether you are on Waimea on the Big Island or whether you are in Kalihi, if you walk into a Ready Keiki classroom, it looks exactly the same. Same flooring, same furniture, everything is exactly the same. The reason for that is we save costs by bulk buying and learning from building one and then going to the next one. But the second thing is it is really about equity. Whether you live on the remote areas or whether you live right in downtown, we want a child, a 3 or 4 year old, to have the same experience whether they live on the Big Island or Kauai or right here in downtown Honolulu. So, it is really about having equity and access.
Well, one of the challenges that we know that the program faced earlier this year was just the overall workforce challenges. And this is something that we are seeing not only confined to what's happening with this program, but throughout the state and just overall labor concerns. With schools not operating at full capacity, but also noting that there is a demand for these teachers. How do you see the role of these teachers who are trying to fill these positions? How do you go about making sure that they not only are equipped, but that there is enough of them to go around for all this initiative that you guys want to continue to roll out?
Yeah. The sad reality is in the recent past, the shortages have been on the secondary education, so that would be middle school, high school, and subject matter. But now we're seeing shortages also in the elementary school level. So as somebody who is pushing for more preschool seats to be open, we are also mindful about the shortages all around in our teaching field, whether it's teaching assistant or as a school administrator or even as an educational assistant. So the great thing is Department of Education is working really hard to fill many of those seats. I was talking to the superintendent about the success rate of hiring this year. In addition, we're working with both the Chaminade University and the University of Hawaii to provide tuition waivers and free tuition to encourage individuals who want to go into this field to get into the field of teaching with basically very little cost to individuals.
Well, we're going to be catching up with the superintendent a little bit later in this broadcast, and we'll ask him a little more about some of those initiatives to get teachers into the classroom. We want to switch gears now. Another initiative that you are pushing is the state's broadband efforts and the state's Connect Kako initiative. Where do things stand right now? Because there was a big announcement that happened last week coming out from Washington, D.C. and the partnership with the state. What can you tell us about what's happening in that arena?
We have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with the help of the federal government to shore up our broadband capacity. It must be so frustrating, when you're in Hana or when we're in certain areas and then you can't get internet service. And in fact, I was on Lanai and, you're trying to check the status of your flight and you can't even get on the internet. And can you imagine how frustrating it is for certain communities not be able to even, go online to have healthcare appointments or just to learn a little bit more about some of your searches and some of the things that you're looking at in the internet. So one of the things that we are working with the broadband office and the University of Hawaii is to take advantage of the $500 million investment that the federal government has provided the state in shoring up the entire infrastructure within the state. But at the same time, it is really about not just building the infrastructure, it's about teaching individuals who don't have the internet savvy. In fact, my son is way better on the internet than I am. So, teaching some of our residents to master how to get on the internet and use these services.
So broadband literacy almost, if you will. And so what does that look like? Is that classes that are going to be had, tutorials? I mean, how do you teach, I guess, a generation that may not be familiar with it, but, as we move into this more digital age and we see this expansion happening, how exactly is that going to navigate and basically happen?
Yeah. So the counties are already working really hard with, and along with many of our nonprofit partners are talking and thinking about exactly that. How do you plan out some of the literacy issues, some of our infrastructure issues? And it's because of those efforts that we are able to try to get a plan together and spend the $500 million commitment from the federal government to bring literacy up to speed and to bring infrastructure up to speed.
And so if you can just expand a little bit more about this initial proposal that was approved by the National Telecommunication and Information Administration for that $194 million. What can you tell us about what was included in that proposal and what that money specifically will be going to during this initial phase?
The state of Hawaii is so different from any other states because we're connected with other islands as well. So For instance, the 48 contiguous states, they can pretty much depend on some of the terrestrial lines to connect each other. For us, we have, in order for us to be connected to the continent, for us to be connected to Asia, we have to rely on undersea cable. But even between the islands, to connect Hawaii to Oahu, Oahu to Maui, and the Big Island, there are undersea cables that connects all of us and all the islands together. So some of that money will be used to create redundant and more lines between the islands, because the last thing we want is to be cut off from each other, especially as when we're dealing with disaster, when we're dealing with educational opportunities, health care opportunities in remote areas and remote communities. The last thing we want is for our internet and our IT system not to be working.
Well, we're going to be catching up with the strategic broadband coordinator of the state of Hawaii coming up a little bit later after we speak to the lieutenant governor. So we're going to expand a little bit more and get details about just exactly how all of this is going to get rolled out. I want to ask you, Lieutenant Governor, as you have been in this role now for 2 years, what has been some of the more challenges that you did not anticipate when taking this office? What have you learned so far in your role in these last 2 years?
I really enjoyed this job. The fact that the governor and I work really well as a partner, and he allows me to do great initiatives like Ready Keiki and broadband and Connect Kako. It's this partnership and working together to solve Hawaii's issues. It just brings a lot of satisfaction to this job. A lot of times, there are many challenges within the state, but it's really about all of us, working with each other, working with the legislature to solve some of our biggest challenges. There's going to be really exciting things coming up in the next several years. The Department of Education, along with the legislators and along with our office, we're already working at trying to figure out how we build teacher housing on some of our state campuses. And that would be a huge opportunity and huge asset in a way that we can retain and recruit new teachers as well. So we're always thinking about how do we provide better service and how do we become more responsive to the communities that we serve.
In this role of being lieutenant governor, and we've seen different lieutenant governors take on different initiatives, right? They take on projects that maybe are important to them, something that they have background in. And that's one of the unique things about the lieutenant governor's office is it kind of flows based on the individual who's in that role. There are some who will say that there needs to be more a defined role, that there needs to be more assigned duties to that role and that office. What do you think that balance should be? I mean, do you think that the lieutenant governor's role should continue to maybe change based on the personnel, or should there be more structure based on their in terms of roles and responsibilities?
You really got to use your strength and then see if we can try to figure out what are some of your weaknesses are, and you got to maximize some of the as we go forward in the future. Even Ready Keiki, for us to be able to open, basically 44 classroom. For me, it's just so satisfying because we are providing that once in a lifetime opportunity for these 3 and 4 year olds who in the past may not have gotten that same kind of opportunity for early learning. So, those little things make it so satisfying that we try to work even harder to tackle the next issue.
Well, we are unfortunately all out of time. But before I let you go, I gotta ask: are you watching the Olympics?
I am.
What are you watching? I am too.
Olympics. And last night I was glued to the gymnastics, the men's gymnastics. Today I understand I have to watch the women's one.
Yeah, so it's an exciting time. And that's the only thing we're a little behind, so we kind of know what happens before it enters prime time. But it's always a good show to watch on when the Olympics are on. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We'll have more here from Spotlight Now with focus on broadband coming up right after this.